You're listening to Pneuma, the crossroad of science and enlightenment. This podcast is a place where science meets soul and healing meets hope, where the latest in science meets ancient wisdom to illuminate the path toward healing and transformation. We break through stigma and misinformation to explore the transformative power of psychedelic therapy, holistic health, and the mind-body connection. Through stories, insight, and expert conversations, we provide practical solutions to help you reclaim your mental health, embrace your spirituality, and achieve true enlightenment. Hosted by Alan Wiederhold, author of the book Walking in the Garden, Discovering God Through Psychedelics. Alan is the consummate explorer, passionate about empowering others to embrace the divinity of their true selves, as well as the founder of Pneuma Health, whose mission is to restore and transform lives. Here's your host, Alan Wiederhold.
Welcome, everyone, to the show. So today, I have a very special guest. We've been trying to do this for a while now, my man. I have Cesar Marin, who, in the world of the space that I'm finding myself in, needs no introduction. Like, brother, you are everywhere right now. And I love the feed. I love the conversations that we've been having over the last couple of weeks. I want to get into your story, but the very first question that I had as I was kind of thinking about this Cesar, are you on drugs right now?
Actually, I am.
If that's... I kind of tongue in cheek, and I really wanted that because as you and I were talking in the very beginning of the show, when people find out the work that we do, the space that we're kind of pioneering right now, in that we microdose, that's like the very first question that people ask. I had somebody ask me a couple of weeks ago, I was on a Zoom call. They had a cup of coffee in their hand, and they said, I heard you wrote a book about psychedelics. Are you on drugs right now? And I laughed because she was literally holding a cup of coffee. And I'm like, so that evidently that doesn't count.
That doesn't count.
But talk to me, Cesar.
What
so
is a drug?
Are you on drugs right now?
What is a drug? What is a
How
drug?
does this all work?
Well, first of all, Alan, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me on your podcast. I am humbled and honored to be spending time with you. I love what you're doing. I really am fascinating, by how you stepped into the space and how you're being present. So thank you. Thank you for letting me be part of this. Thank you for letting me share my story with your followers and your audience and people who care about you. So thank you. And yes, people do ask me if I'm on drugs, which is fine because what is a drug? Sugar's a drug. Alcohol's a drug. Coffee's a drug. What is a drug? And it's that sense of us explaining to people that, yes, I'm using these things responsibly. And it was funny because, medicine, as some people know, if you know my story, came into my life while I was working at CNN. And I was about to get laid off at CNN. I mean, it was, the medicine was really smart when it came into my life. Mushrooms were incredibly intuitive of when I needed them. And my last couple of days at CNN, I was openly telling people I was microdosing. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're openly telling people that you're on drugs? And I'm like, no, I'm openly telling people that I'm using something that the universe has given us and it's grown in the earth, and I'm using it as a life performance enhancer to be a better person. And they're like, wait a minute, hold on. I look, do I look high? And they're like, no, actually your shows are awesome. Do I look like I'm tripping balls? No, you look empathetic and you look creative and you look smiling, you look awesome. So when people ask me, am I on drugs? I go, yeah, I did microdose this morning. So yeah, technically I am.
So well, let's go back a little bit further because I want to know, how did you come to this point? So one of the things I always tell my listeners, and I'm very open and authentic with at least my story. So I was sexually abused as a child. I built an amazing life. I had everything that the world could possibly want, and I would lay in bed thinking of ways to kill myself. I was even reading journal articles this morning from a couple of years ago, and it was just amazing, like the deep-seated trauma that was there that I didn't even recognize.
Yeah.
And to be able to look at it now from this lens of I've revisited, I've healed. I used to say I'm a survivor. I'm not a survivor anymore. I've moved beyond that. So
Correct.
For me, though, it was an interesting place to get to because you said the exact same thing that I was thinking. So my doctor said the exact same thing to me, bro. I prescribe drugs from a lab. They come to your door every month. I have no idea where they come from. And you have an issue with plants from the ground that God created. And he's like, we need to think about this. And I remember coming home, and I think that was kind of that defining moment for me. That was like the thought process. But walk me through, like, how did you get there? Because I don't think we just get there. I think there's some circumstances that kind of happen along the way.
Of course there is. I'm a big believer that most people are called. They're called somehow, they find them. And for me, my story is unique in the sense that and first of all, Alan, I wanted to say thank you very much for your honesty and for being vulnerable. I think that that's really important, especially nowadays, especially for men. Especially for men, we have this situation where we're so closed off, and when we're not vulnerable, when we're not sort of in our space, that can harm us more than do us good. So again, thank you for sharing, and thank you for being vulnerable, because that's really important. I think that's beautiful that you have that. And for me, this all happened out of a recreational curiosity. My calling came, I had a really bad cannabis dependency before psychedelics came into my life. It was 24/7. It was just really bad. The cannabis had controlled me. And about 2 years ago, someone really close to me has an experience in Martha's Vineyards with psilocybin. And they come back to me and they're like, oh my God, you don't understand. It was amazing. My kids, who an hour before I wanted to kill them, I realized how lucky I was. I looked at my husband and I said, oh my God, I'm a queen and he's my king. And it's amazing. And it's funny, Alan, because me being the stigmatized person that psychedelics are bad, that psychedelics are horrible, I was sitting there very hypocritically saying, yeah, stoner, yeah, hippie, you druggie, doing psychedelics, right?
Yes.
Of course. It's funny because a couple weeks later, I'm on a bike ride here in Atlanta, 200-300 people. It's like a critical mass type situation. And I'm riding next to a friend of mine, and he's got this smile from ear to ear. And I'm like, dude, are you okay? And he says, I just had some mushrooms and I feel like I'm a child riding my bike for the first time. This is amazing. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, so this person's talking about mushrooms. This other person's talking about what is this mushrooms and what are these psychedelics? And that cannabis dependent person who had gotten to the point where the cannabis really is not doing anything was like, let's find that new high. What is that new high? And it was crazy because I asked the person that was on the bike, I said, so do you know where I can get these mushrooms? And he looked at me and he says, these bikes don't pay for themselves. And I was like,
oh my God.
I was like, okay, so wait a minute. So the mushrooms talk to me. They come into my life. And not only that, they bring me the person who is safe. Well, I'm not going to order something. I'm not going to find some plug. I'm not going to go to some corner. It was a safe environment. And it was funny, Alan, because the first time I tried psilocybin, I don't know. I think it's like cannabis. You don't have to smoke the whole joint to get high. You know what I mean? You smoke a little and you feel something. So I have a piece of the chocolate bar. Henceman, to me, I was having a microdose. I didn't even know what a microdose was. So it was funny because it was like, okay, this is fine, but where's the hallucination and where's all the crazy and where's the trippiness and where's that going to happen? And it was funny because it wasn't until a week later. It was the Monday before Halloween, 2022, same bike ride. I have half of the chocolate bar and I'm on my bicycle and I literally have my own bicycle day. Because as Albert Hoffman happened to him, I'm riding and all of a sudden, Adam, I go, oh my God, that is what my hands feel like. That's what it feels like to breathe. And look at all these beautiful humans. What is this? This is amazing. But Alan, what's crazy is that as I'm driving home from this bike ride and I'm still in the journey and street lights are going off as fireworks, something literally says to me, what are you doing? Are you serious? You're driving in these conditions? Like, and dude, have you seen how old you are? You're 55 fucking years old. What are you, chasing highs? Is that what you're doing? You realize you have 3 kids? What happens if you crash? Then what do you? And it was crazy because I'm like, who's talking? Who is this? Like, who is this? It was my conscious. It was my conscious finally waking up and saying, what are you doing? And of course, as a journalist, I mean, Alan, I'd worked at CNN for 25 years. I go, what just happened? What was it that these substances did in my brain and my body that had me feel? And all of a sudden I go, wait, what? People are using psychedelics as medicine? What are you talking about? And they're using this for depression, and they're using this for anxiety, and they're using this for PTSD. And what is this microdosing? Wait a minute. People are using microdosing to overcome their dependencies to alcohol, to cannabis, to gambling. And it was crazy because, Alan, at that moment, the heart said, did you read that? And the brain was like, no, we didn't read shit. Go hit that joint. Go smoke that joint.
Nothing to see here. There's nothing to see.
Nothing to see. Keep going. And it was then that it clicked and it said, okay, start to research, start to do your research, start to investigate, start to become a microdosing expert before you start to microdose. And that's how it came into my life. And it was, there was obviously the stigma, associated to psychedelics before, but once it happened, it was like this Pandora's box was open. And I was telling this, I think that I started to microdose on November 7th, 2022. And I don't think there's a day that's gone by that I have not talked openly about my respectful and responsible use of psychedelics. So it's completely changed my life. I know that everyone's story is completely and differently unique. And I'm really grateful because they did change my life. They changed my life for the better.
So how long have you been using cannabis, just out of curiosity?
Pretty much on and off my whole adult life.
So you did have okay. Because for me, I had zero history with anything to do with anything except the other drugs we already named, caffeine and working out and
no, cannabis was a part of my life. It was part of an escapism, right? It was part of dealing with situations in life that maybe I didn't know how to manage at the time.
Okay.
And it didn't serve me, right? It didn't. I realize that now, right? And look, that being said, it's not like I've said I'll never smoke cannabis again in my life. I think that mentality of, and it sometimes comes with abstinence, right? It's sort of, I'm counting how many days I haven't had whatever, and when you slip, then it's like, forget about it. Then let's just go. So for me, it was change the relationship with cannabis. Don't let cannabis control you. Be in control of the relationship so much that you can say, not right now. Not right now. Doesn't interest you. I don't have.
Do you think some of that comes with intentions? So one of the things that I always I'm fascinated by history. I went to Bible college, which in itself is a whole nother conversation. But I always look at things from a lens of there really is no good or bad. There only is. And what I mean by that, because people are like, oh my gosh, here he goes again. If you ever go back long enough in history, bad and good are always interchangeable. And so many of the beliefs that we think today of we shouldn't do these things or we should do these things, they really come from someone else's purview. They really do. I mean, a lot of what we believe today are really just kind of leftover things from the dark ages, from medieval times, the way that we kind of interpret good and bad. So I always say when people are saying, well, drugs are bad, what is bad? So, and then it was funny because you said the exact same thing. I did hippies. I immediately think of like all of the things from the 60s that were beautiful that we as business people kind of ridicule today. But I remember, having those exact same feelings. So just like, why would I do that? Because those other people were doing it. It's very hypocritical.
Yeah. And that happens. And it's sort of, we're about the same age, right? Yeah. We grew up in this generation where either you were stigmatized to the point where psychedelics are bad. They're going to burn your brain. You're going to end up in a loony institute. You're going to end up in jail. Your teeth are going to rot. Your hair, it's just bad. That's or you had that one experience, right? And it was just off the rails. One, because you didn't know, you just grabbed a bunch of mushrooms and you ate them and then whatever. And also you didn't have any intentions. So there is that sloth of the population that to them, it's like, oh no, whoa, psychedelics, no. But I think that the fact that someone like yourself and someone like myself are having these conversations is incredibly important. And let's think about it. Look, we're going to talk to 5 people and we're going to have these discussions. 2 of them are going to say druggy, pothead, and look at him. Look at them right now. I can be that way. Then that's what we need to do, because you're right. We come from this generation. The moment you say psychedelics, people are oh, crazy, whatever.
Yeah, so I facilitate now, and you're dead on that. When you openly share the story like you and I do, it really is. It's almost fascinating to see the responses that you get, because I always hear I did it in college, like you said. I took a bunch of mushrooms and I had zero intentions, and I went on a joyride that went off the rails, which is typically what's going to happen. And we'll kind of get into that
exactly
in a few minutes. But or I had a friend. It's always I had a friend. It's never like it's either me or someone I knew, which I'm like, it's you. We all have that friend. But then I have these people who've seen the other side of me, like where I am now. And in the journal, again, kind of referring to what I just read this morning, that is not me anymore. And to be able to now have conversations with friends at a table and to say, I did a DMT journey a couple of weeks ago and I died. I had this incredible spiritual death, or I just came back from this incredibly beautiful ceremony where I had 8 grams of, beautiful golden teacher. And I got to see like this connection back to God. And it's like, now it's kind of like, okay, it's kind of normal talk now, but you're really happy. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it is. It's kind of a crazy conversation.
But I think, and the other thing is, it's wonderful to see the curiosity in people, right? Once you start to tell them, they're like, whoa, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Tell me, so wait, what's going on? This is going on. And it's part of I think a lot of us in the psychedelic space, right? We're always, why aren't more people talking about this? Why isn't this more accessible? Why isn't this more this or more that? And I tell people the reason why we're not up here is because we're right here. And 12 months ago, we were down here. And 5 years ago, we were down here. Do you think 5 years ago, we could have fathomed the thought that you and I would be openly having a conversation about using psychedelics?
Yeah.
No. So we were down here, now we're here, and there's a potential for us to be up here. We have to be patient. We have to, again, share our stories and be open and be objective and have these conversations, because there is a lot of really wonderful potentials that could be had out of this if it's done the right way, if it's done with intention.
I had a friend, she's actually a friend now. I love her to death. When I met her, she said, "You are everything that's good and bad about this space." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "When successful business people wake up, that's an incredibly great thing, but it's an incredibly dangerous thing." And I think what she meant was that there's always an opportunity for capitalism to come into the picture and for people to come in to do things the wrong way. And I think where we are right now, I think you're right. I think we're in the perfect spot for where people who genuinely care about healing and genuinely care about people. I think, again, we use the word pioneer, and I don't ever see myself as a pioneer. I see myself more as a prophet right now. But it was a very interesting thing. But I think it's because we have this screwed up view of what capitalism is. At least I think we do. So capitalism in this true, genuine form is an exchange of value. I give you something, I get something of equal or more value. What we have today is really a perverted system of I take what I want, you get what's left over. But to me, that isn't real capitalism. Capitalism in its truest form, again, is like everybody wins. Like the pie is big enough for all of us.
So I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and if you've ever heard me, you've probably heard me say this. I'm a big believer, Alan, that there's 2 types of people in this world, right? There's people who manifest love you wealth. And I didn't say money, love you wealth. My house is wealth. The food I eat is my wealth. The clothing I wear is wealth, right? The taking care of the people around me is wealth. And I know that hopefully I can create these stacks with this wealth that I'm manifesting, but I know they're not going to make me completely happy. So if I take part of these or half of these and spread them out, imagine how many people I can make happy. That's love you wealth. There's nothing wrong with manifesting that. And there's nothing wrong with that part of capitalism of me giving you something so that I can get something back. The problem is the people who manifest fuck you wealth. That is that I'm going to just take and I'm going to leave you whatever is left. And in the psychedelic space, there's both types. There's a lot more people manifesting love you wealth because I've seen it, because I felt it, because I see you, because we've been in these networking things and everyone is just about love. What can I do to help you? Without asking, what am I going to get back? Like, what can I do for you? Right. And that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. And there's a lot of people in this space that do that. And I think that's the more we connect with those, if we're mushrooms and we're connecting mycelium to these other mushrooms that are manifesting love you wealth, imagine how much love you wealth we can manifest amongst all of us.
God, that was just, I love that. That's so beautifully said. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the mushroom. So
Yeah.
when you started this journey, you said you did a ton of research and you wanted to become somewhat of an expert before you
Yeah.
did. And I think I was on a very similar journey. I didn't trust anyone or what they were telling me. And the only way for me to really do anything is to go research it myself. So I did. So tell me about that journey. Like, what did that journey look like for you when you were doing all of this research? And what did you find? I mean, let's kind of get into the
Yeah.
mushrooms, if you will.
Definitely. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I found that for me, the thing that best works is me having a relationship with the mushrooms that I'm going to consume, right? And that being said, I grow my own, right? There's ways to sort of you navigate around growing your own medicine, which I think is really powerful. So for me, that initial, the mushrooms were the ones that talked to me. The mushrooms were the ones that came into my life. I think because of the fact that it was something natural, it wasn't like, oh, here's LSD or here's ecstasy or here's ketamine or here's, whatever, substance people are using to microdose. So it became the sense of it's very nature wise. It's very there. And the first, obviously, starting to microdose was, okay, how can I get to the rawest form of the mushroom? And again, it became that dabble in, first let me try capsules, mushrooms capsules. And then it was like, wait a minute, well, if I can grow my own, why can't I sort of grow my own mushrooms? And that's where the relationship, that really personal relationship with the mushrooms would come. I was able to partner up with a wonderful company called Wonder Bags.
Wonder
I'm not sure
Bags,
if you know them or not. Wonder Bags is awesome, just the technology that they have. So the sense that I have my own medicine, it's called medicine, if you want to call it medicine, and I grow my own and I play music for it and I see as they come out and they pin and I see as they grow and I open them and I take them out and I hold them in my hand and then I, dehydrate them and they're mine. It's mine. It's not something that I went to some doctor. He wrote me some script. I went to the pharmacy and they gave me some opaque bottle with some white top that's impossible to open. Well, I don't know how many people touched this medicine before I ingested it. It's that relationship with that. Now,
so before I didn't mean to interrupt, but so this is so big because I think you hit on a couple of things. So when I started this whole thing, I had my first healing with MDMA and ketamine. I mean, that was how I was able to revisit the trauma. But I'm kind of at the same place that you are, that I've been doing this for a while now, is that ceremonial is much more important to me personally. The mycelium that grows in the ground is way more, to me, more important than anything else, because it could be either chemically created in a lab or, again, just for me personally, I think where I'm at right now. But to be able to grow it, to be able to play music to it, to hold it, I mean, that takes the relationship to a whole nother level. I mean, that wasn't something that I had even considered before now. So, and I didn't mean to interrupt, but that was, I mean, literally, I think after we get off the phone, we'll have another conversation about that.
No, but it talks to the personal relationship that you can have with your healing. Right, that you can totally feel that I have a relationship with these mushrooms. Right, I have a wonderful, loving relationship. It's they don't control me. I don't control them. We have this mutual bond, and I don't want it to sound woo woo but it's there's something there about it. There's something.
Well, no,
really...
because I mean, we've all seen science. I mean, we talked about frequency earlier.
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, they've shown plants that have thrived with the right music. It's all relational. I mean, everything is connected back to each other anyway. So I don't think it would be woo woo. I think it's actually, I think it's like spot on.
Yeah, it's that personal healing. There's something about, you having real hands-on touch with what you're really believing in, that is helping you, that is incredibly powerful. It's very different. It's become, like you said, I love that sense of ritual, right? That sense of respect for the medicine. And that's part of, people who I work with. I ask them, please don't let microdosing become some type of supplement that it's just, I'm going to take my B12 and I'm going to take my whatever, my vitamin C, and I'm going to take my microdosing. Let's have some respect for it, right? Let's have, a relationship with it. Let's sit down and say, hey, Earth, universe, God, Buddha, Allah, whoever you entrust in your heart, thank you for putting this on the earth for me. Thank you for letting me have them. And thank you for letting me ingest these and giving them consent to be my best self. I think that's a beautiful. I feel lucky that I'm in that situation right now, that I can take my health into my own hand.
Well, and I think what you're describing is what we would call intentions. And I think that when you go to the effort of giving thanks to whoever, and I love that you said that. So my daughter, I have a 10-year-old daughter. We had this challenge that we did for almost a year, where the very first thing we would do in the morning when we woke up, we would get on our knees and just say, thank you. Thank you for life. Thank you for my wife who was sleeping. But to be able to start the day with intent, to be able to hold this in your hand and to create the intention, I think that really sets apart the entire day, because most of us get up and do what? We run around with our head cut off. Very last thing that we do is look at our calendar proactively. Everything that we do is react. So to me, this is setting the very first action intention of the day, which just kind of dominoes everything from there.
Yeah. And that's why people who I work with, and the people I've seen that have the best results, are people who have journals and intentionally write their intentions on a daily basis.
Do you think setting intentions and journaling is important? I mean, I've been doing it since I had my first journey, was 2 years ago. I journal every morning, without fail. Yeah.
It's incredibly important. It's your roadmap. Your intentions are your roadmap. Your calendar, yes, that's your plan. That's where you're going. But your intentions are really what sets what your day is going to be like. And you said it. Look, and there's intentions of intentions. There's intentions. You know what? I need to finish this project. Of course, that's a good intention. Hey, I need to call my mom, who I haven't talked to in a couple of days. That's an intention. Hey, you know what? I'm going to go into the supermarket and I'm going to say good morning to everyone, just because I want to make someone's day. That's an intention. Hey, I'm really going to sit with my thoughts and not ruminate about the negative stuff. Those are intentions, and those are incredibly important. That's, like I said, people who journal and people who write their intentions on a daily basis and microdose, it goes incredibly hand in hand. It goes really well hand in hand, because it's the consent. It's part of the consent of why my intentions to take this is this. Whatever your intentions are, I want to be a better person.
It's almost a sacrament. Like you're taking a daily sacrament, not a supplement, which, as we were talking about before with Pneuma Hydrate, I have most of the things that people would need for brain health are just in a scoop you add to water. This is literally a sacrament that you're giving back to the earth to be able to create and start your day.
No, it's true. It's true. And again, it goes back to the relationship. And when you create these relationships where it's hands-on and it's yours, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I tell people, again, intentions and respect for the medicine is what's going to really set you on your path for microdosing to have the most benefits and really have the best outcomes possible.
Because I think when you disrespect, it goes back to the conversation we had earlier about being in college. Everyone had the friend in college, or they were in college. They had no intentions. They really had no respect for the medicine. They took it on the way to a party, or they were, it's always on a building. Everyone I talk to, they're sitting on top of a building. Like, okay. So everyone sits on top of a building. They drop mushrooms or whatever they decide they want to do. And then they remember the negative for the rest of their lives. Again, because they didn't have any respect or intention for the medicine.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pneuma, the crossroad of science and enlightenment. We hope you're enjoying the deep dive into psychedelics, neuroplasticity, and the path to transformation. Before we continue, let's discuss recovery. After powerful experiences, your mind deserves more than just rest. It needs real support. That's where Pneuma Hydrate comes in. Formulated with GABA, taurine, inositol, magnesium, and more, Pneuma Hydrate is designed to help your brain recover faster and support neuroplasticity, giving you the clarity and the energy to fully embrace your journey. Fuel your recovery and elevate your mind with Pneuma Hydrate. Check out pneuma.health to learn more. Now, enjoy the rest of the episode. When I think about just thinking even about mushrooms, like there's like 400 different kinds were being marketed to everyone about all of the great benefits of like lion's mane and ashwagandha. And how do we
Turkey
know, like,
tail.
yeah, I mean, how do we know, like, what is there one that's better than another? I mean, how would we begin to?
That's a really great question. And again, it goes back to intentions, right? It goes back to intentions of, I want to be more creative. Well, lion's mane could really help, your brain function. Well, you know what? I want to get a little bit more in shape. Well, there's, cordyceps and, other anti-inflammatory mushrooms that can help. I mean, the world of mushrooms is fascinating. And where was I reading the other day? That there's a plethora of mushrooms that haven't been analyzed or haven't been categorized, and we don't know what the potential benefits of them are. So it's intense, right? It's education, and like you said, there's a lot out there. There's a lot out there. So there's this sort of navigational road that you have to, and especially, there's a difference obviously between functional mushrooms, which you can buy regularly, which you can, go to a store and get. And even then you have to be careful because you don't know, if someone, let's say, I've read stories of, instead of, they're selling lion's mane supplement, but instead of the lion's mane, it's actually the mycelium of the lion's mane. So it's not actually the fruiting body. Right, they're using the mycelial part. So even in the regulated market, right, we have to navigate really carefully. Imagine now in this gray market, right, where you don't know who you're ordering from, what they're putting in it, what's going on. Is it really mushrooms? Is it 4-ACO DMT? Is it so it's important that we do educate ourselves in one. What are the best mushrooms to use for what I'm looking for what my intentions are, right? And, both the functional mushrooms, right? And obviously the psychoactive mushrooms. So I think it's really important that we educate ourselves in that. And part of it, look, the reason why I feel safe microdosing, I go back to the same thing, because I have my mushrooms, because I know it wasn't something where I ordered from Joe Shrooms on the internet and then I'm not sure.
And in fact, I think we've seen several recalls. Like we've seen some pretty monster, disastrous results of people ending up in hospitals taking something or a mushroom that wasn't even a mushroom. It was something either it was tainted, that story a couple months ago. Here, I live in Maryland, which we're so close to DC. In DC, it's decriminalized. Yes. So I could literally pick up a phone and have it delivered on the border of the DC, Maryland, and I've done it. So, but again, I think having it regulated or at least decriminalized, it allows the openness of being able to get it from a reputable person. But
and again, there's all these obstacles, right? There's all these obstacles that potentially happen. I sort of look at, and I'll start by saying psychedelics aren't for everybody. They're not. It's just, we really have to be cautious. And, I'm also fearful. I want access for everyone. That's obviously, accessibility is important. Safe accessibility is important. But I would hate to sort of close my eyes and think of a day where I can go to the corner store and let me get a little bit of that ayahuasca. And how about if I take some of that DMT and I'll take a couple pounds of those mushrooms and definitely give me some of that LSD and some of that MDMA and I'll be fine. Like, I don't want that either.
Yeah.
Like,
which I think most people I think they have a misconception of us in the space that's what we want. We want to be able to go and order like we do lottery, tickets. Like I've heard people at the line, like I'll take a number 4 and roll out, and they have nicknames for these things. And I'm like, how do you I don't even know, but yeah, like we don't want that. No. Because I 100% agree. They are not for everyone. And I love that you said in the very beginning, it's almost like they're calling you, whether you realize that or not. So to cheapen the sacrament by just being able to pick it up at a store, I think is exactly the opposite of what we want.
Yeah. No, I'm right on board with you because, again, it's about education. It's about harm reduction. It's about using them responsibly. It's about using them safely. And then the true potential benefits of psychedelics can be there. So it's look, the fact that you and I are having this honest, open, and objective information conversation, that's where it starts. That's where it starts, because, hopefully someone that listens to this who is psychedelic curious, instead of saying, hey, let me go order my first stuff, maybe they say, hey, you know what? Alan and Cesar were talking about education and about how you really should, there's different substances. So that's what I'm going to do. That's where we make the difference. That educational part is where we really touch people, hopefully, because if not, then we are going to find that situation where someone says, hey, you know what? Hey, I heard Cesar microdose. Maybe I should try that. And it's like, no, wait a minute. That didn't really work for me.
Well, and I wanted to get into that. So microdosing first, or is there the big event first? I mean, like for me, I'm thinking, do I need to go and have this like monster experience first before I microdose? What are doses? Like, how do I even know, like, what is a dose? So I have people who call, I don't mean to laugh. I have people who call me now, like I'll be at a store and they're like, I just had so-and-so, they found my candy bar and they took, and I'm like, okay, wait. So can you tell me how much was in the candy bar first?
Yeah.
And I feel like Emergency Squad 51 on the phone, they're calling in with symptoms for those old people who know the show I'm talking about. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, it's 4 grams. It's a museum dose. But what is like, how do I know? Like, what are these dosing things that we talk about?
Awesome. That's a great question. And it's a really smart question, because, the term microdosing is out there. People are talking about it. People are hearing it. They're hearing it in shows. Friends are talking about it. I'm wearing a shirt that says microdosing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's sort of, it's there, right? So what is microdosing? Microdosing is taking a very small amount, what they call subperceptual, subintoxication amount of a psychoactive substance, be it psilocybin, LSD. Some people are microdosing mescaline. There's people microdosing MDMA, which I'm not a real big fan of, but there is studies of people microdosing MDMA. So the idea is that it's taken and it's subperceptual, where there's neural pathways and neural connections happening without it being a full-blown psychedelic, things are moving, I'm feeling stuff experience. What I tell people, microdosing it's not about what you're feeling, it's about what you're doing. It's about how you're reacting. It's about how you're being present in the
experiencing.
World. That's what when you find that sense of that afterglow, that flow state, that's what true microdosing is. So what is a dosage? For me, my personal dosage, I do 250 milligrams. So that is a quarter of a gram of mushrooms, a quarter of a gram. 0.25. That for me, and again, I've been microdosing for a long time. I've built up a little tolerance. I've done some citizen science, which is incredibly important. And you can do that again when you grow your own medicine and you dehydrate your own medicine and you grind your own medicine. You can say, you know what does 260 look like? Or what does 280 feel like? And I was able to do that citizen science to get to the point where, you know what, that wasn't a microdose. That I'm feeling something. It's not, but this isn't subperceptual. I'm feeling something.
It's not
I'm
functional.
Feeling yawny-ish. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit tired. That's too much. So that's microdosing for me. The citizen science really helped me to find that perfect flow state. So that is microdosing. I tell people, if you're feeling something, even if it's a small sense of I'm a little tired more than normal, then that might be a little bit too much. That's usually where people get. Now, I loved your question about, if I'm psychedelic curious, should I start with a big journey and then microdose, or should I microdose and then have that big journey? We talked about it. Calling. What's being called to you? What are you feeling? For me, my first awakening, there wasn't any intention. There was whatever. And the mushrooms told me, dude, this isn't what this is about. It's not what this is about. Have some intentions. So I chalk off that first one more as into that curiosity dump, right? I start to microdose knowing that I've heard all these other stories about bad journeys, big journeys. I don't know. I was fine with that one, the medicine really kicked me in the ass, telling me what was I doing. And it scolded me, and I don't want to do that again. So there was this sense I'm just going to microdose. But as I microdosed, a couple of weeks into the microdosing, somehow I end up watching this documentary, and there was this conversation between Paul Stamets and Deepak Chopra, and they're talking about, bigger heroic journeys. And the medicine was like, you're ready. Now you're ready. Now you're ready. And there's people who somehow say, you know what, maybe I'm called to have this big experience, this big therapeutic healing in the right setting with the right person. Let me have that journey. And then afterwards say, you know what, now that I've built a little relationship, let me see what microdosing can do. And maybe it can help me find that so-called afterglow, right? I'm sure,
and it's
you
so
talked about
important because I feel like everything that we're being told today, which is why I asked the question, is that we need to go and have this monster awakening, like this, but isn't necessarily the case, because I have seen and I've heard and watched people who have gone into it with a lot of anxiety. One, I mean, we can create the intentions and we can work through all that, but again, not having a frame of reference, being told that it's wrong their whole lives, and then kind of going into it with a little bit of fear, wasn't a bad trip, but it was one where they didn't let go and allow the medicine to actually build the relationship with them. So I've seen that. So I think that's a really interesting, do what you're called to do. Because again, I think we're being told we have to do this. So you're listening to someone else's calling. Like you're basically telling them this.
Yeah. No, listen, you got to be intuitive. You have to. And it's, I hate to sound, and again, I'm not sounding woo woo, but it's this connection. You got to listen, right? You got to listen. And if you really feel that you're ready to have this big experience, and again, there's intentions, and again, there's this knowing that, and it's something that definitely we need to touch on, that integration, right? That I know I'm conscious enough that I'm going to have this journey, but I know that there's going to be work to be done. There's a lot of people, and I'm sure, Alan, you've talked to people who think they have this expectation, they have this, that I'm going to have this journey, and then everything's going to be perfect. Everything's going to be perfect, right? That's what you told me.
It's almost sad that the industry, there are parts of the commercial side of this industry that do. You're going to have, and I think to some degree, I think we're seeing that as we're looking at the FDA and creating the institutional side of this. And again, I am very much more ceremonial since I've been down this journey, but I do understand and I do see the need for people to want to be able to have that. But again, I agree. I think we're treating this as, I'm going to take a pill. That's what we love in America. We love to just take a pill. We love a good hack. We love 15-minute abs or 8-minute abs. And I mean, if I can get to 3-minute abs, it'd be great. But we really want to hack everything because it absolves us of any responsibility from actually doing any real work. So I 100% agree. This is not a magic pill. This is not a magic bullet. This opens you up to do the work.
It's like I tell people, it's and you'll never hear me use the word magic mushrooms, because I'm a true believer that the magic is here. I'm the magic.
You know what? I'm never going to use it again. And I never thought twice about that. And I don't like using the words magic mushrooms anyway, because to me, that's just kind of, it belittles what it is.
Yeah. And it's because the human is the magic. The human is the magic. The mushrooms are the conduit. They're the vehicle. You know what I mean? To take you to the magic. But you are the magic. Because let's be honest. Like, I could sit here and eat 4 grams of mushrooms and sit on my couch and go, okay, where's the magic? And nothing happens. But I can take 4 grams of mushrooms and things can open, and my conscience could show me things and different pathways. And then afterwards I go, okay, since I'm the magic, I got to make it happen. I got to do it. Then that's how it works. And that's why integration is such a big part. Integration is the magic. That's the true magic. The work is the magic. The seeing, the opening, the realizing, the awakening, that's the process. But the true magic is the work that needs to be done on all of us. And whether it's that work of being vulnerable, whether it's that work of being present, whether it's the work of, really being in tune with who we are, whether it's the work of being authentic, that's the magic. The human's the magic, and that's where the work is. Yeah, the mushroom's going to help for sure. For sure. They've helped me. They've helped countless of others, right? So this isn't, or we're just talking, whatever. There's science behind it. Yeah. There's science. And that's a great thing about where we are now. And it's sort of, this isn't the psychedelics of the 60s. This is psychedelics of Johns Hopkins University and of NYU and of Berkeley and of Stanford and of Harvard and dozens of other countless institutions who were saying, wait a minute, like, how can we use these to better people? So I think that's important.
Well, and I think the unfortunate part about all of that is that we knew all this in the 60s and even the late 50s. And I think from what I remember, there was a Times or there was a national publication that actually had the mushroom on the cover because of all of the incredible healing properties that they had for depression and anxiety and all these other things. And then when we had the Vietnam War and we started to whitewash everything, and that's been eradicated from history. Like I can't even find that cover anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember I was hosting an event here in Baltimore. Initially, it was for other veterans like myself dealing with PTSD, but all these community leaders that actually came. And because I live in Baltimore, where the research really was here, it was ground zero back in the 50s and 60s. So I had incredible people like Sunstone Therapeutics, and I had Hopkins people here, and I had some of what I would call the OGs of the space. Like they were literally like, I went to dinner with them afterwards and we're having these conversations about all of the stuff that they knew and all of the incredible potential. And then one day they just all got a letter and said, no more, you can't do this anymore. And you have to scrap all of the research that you did. So, I've heard the term fifth awakening, if whatever, I mean, I've heard that.
Yeah.
But to be here in ground zero, but to say we knew all this before, so it's just
ironic.
kind of.
Yeah. And it's again, for how many millennia were plant medicine used responsibly, respectfully, and they were there. And then all of a sudden, 1950, 1960 rolls around and wait a minute, no, take this away from people. This is bad. This is horrible. So again, where could we be right now if that had changed? Well, we don't know. Right. And then we can't live in that either. What we can live in is, where are we right now? What can we do right now? How can we have these conversations right now? How can we, again, show that these substances, these medicines, these whatever you want to call them, drugs if you want, are helping people? That's where we move forward, because I think that, looking back, we can't do anything about it.
Correct.
We can't.
Except learn from it. Correct.
Except learn from it. Exactly. Except learn from our mistakes and make sure that it doesn't happen again. So it's hats off to all those pioneers. Hats off to all those OGs who knew, but they were quieted. Well, we're doing the work for them. We're honoring them. Yeah.
That's incredible. So I want to talk about a couple more things in just the last few minutes of time we have. So I've kind of dialed in my dose. We've talked about citizen science. So what is that? Because we've talked about this before. For anybody who doesn't know what citizen science is, how do I define that? Like, how do I?
Citizen science, I always tell people, the best scientists, the scientists that win Nobel Peace Prizes, the scientists that come up with the cures for everything, are the scientists that take the best notes. I do. They take the best notes. So citizen science is about finding what your perfect recipe is, right? Because look, my protocol is not your protocol because it's my protocol. My dosage is not your dosage because it's my dosage. So something that might work for me might not work for you. So it's through that citizen science that we can find out what works best or what doesn't work best, whether it's dosage wise, right? You know what? Adages: start slow or start low, and then you can build up, right? You can always take more, you can never take less. So citizen science is, you know what, let me microdose, let me start an entry point. I'm just going to throw something out there, 150 milligrams. Well, let me start at 150 milligrams. If that didn't work because I'm feeling something, then maybe my threshold is 100 milligrams. Hey, I've done 150 milligrams. I've done it for a little bit. It's not like, let me do this today and let me do this tomorrow. Let me do this for a week, 2 weeks, and then let me see what happens at 200 milligrams. The only way to find out what happens at 200 milligrams is to do some citizen science and do 200 milligrams, but journal it. Like, okay, today I did 200 milligrams. This is what I felt. And this helped. And this didn't help. Because you're going to get to the point through that citizen journal. Well, you know what? That wasn't what worked. That was too much. It also works in the sense of citizen science of someone I worked with. I had put them on a protocol of, the Fadiman protocol, which is the most recognized microdosing protocol. It's the one that I think it's most commonly used. It's based on Dr. James Fadiman, who's considered the godfather of microdosing. He's actually coming out with a new book, which I'm really interested in.
Yes, I saw that.
Research.
Yeah,
his
I
research.
wanted to get into the Jim Fadiman protocol. But yeah. Talk about OG.
So his protocol calls for 1 day on, 2 days off. So I had this person work with that protocol for a couple of weeks, and they came up and they said, look, I have this high deadline job. It's just, and it's weird because the first day I'm fine. The second day, I'm flowing, but the deadline's still there. The third day, it's almost like I'm almost in that manic-y. So I said, all right, why don't we go 4 days on, 3 days off? You know what I mean? Citizen science. Let's play around a little bit, sort of see what happens. He calls me 3 weeks later and he says, I got called into my boss's office. And I went, what happened? He goes, they want to find out how my productivity went up 15% in the last 3 weeks. And he said, I'm just more focused. Like those 4 days, man, what's a deadline? I don't even know what a deadline is. So he did some citizen science. We did some citizen science. We played around a little and we found that flow state. We found the perfect dosage. We found the perfect protocol. And that's how we found his flow state. So it's that citizen science is about, playing around a little bit. Again, it's part of the complication is someone says, well, I want to microdose. Okay, cool. Oh, I found some company that has these microdosing capsules and they're responsible, they're respectful, whatever. They have great reviews. Okay, so I get these capsules that are 200 milligrams. Okay. What happens if that 200 milligrams is too much? Then what do? You send them back and go, sorry, this didn't work. Did you open it? Yeah, we did.
Oh, sorry.
Or if you say, well, what happens if I try a little bit more? Well, go ahead, try 400 milligrams. See how that feels.
Wow.
So again, citizen science, I think is important. It's with journaling because it's not everyone's experience is the same. And that's the other thing with psychedelics, right? And I'm sure you've had this discussion, Alan. And, I tell people don't go in with anything with expectations because every single experience is going to be different. And that's sometimes some people have what they call, I'm not sure if they're called trip chasers or there's this term for people who have an experience, right? And they feel like they didn't finish it off. There's something still there and they want to go back to it. That's not. It's
definitely a trip chaser because I see that very commonly with people that they have these experiences and they no longer trust themselves. They only trust the medicine. I'm kind of going back to what you're saying. So then they're really just chasing another high. Or another experience.
Yeah. And again, that's something that you should look at, right? Is it sort of,
well, normally when I see or I hear of people like that, I go back to something that you had said earlier, the integration, because we don't talk enough about the front end or the back end. So we don't ever talk about the preparation part of this, like getting your mind into the right frame of mind and what is it that you're looking to get. And I always say that the beautiful thing about medicine is that you get what you need, not necessarily what you want. So you very rarely get what you want. But then how do you integrate that? And we kind of talked about it a little bit. Like we talk about the journaling part of that every morning, but what's the lessons that you're getting? And as you were talking about this, I was just thinking about some of the OGs and even some of the new guys. Because Shulkin, when he created all of the patents he did for MDMA and for 2CB and all of these other ones, he was his own guinea pig. He actually would have a journal of his own citizen science. And he has hundreds of patents on every variation of a drug there is. And that's one of the things I think that's made Tim Ferriss as great as he is too, is he's his own human guinea pig. Like if he's going to go test something, he does his own blood draws and he does everything on his own. So you have to figure out what works for you. This is not a one size fits all. So I guess with that, how hard is it to grow? I mean, from what I have talked to other people I've had on my show, they found mushrooms in like cow poop, or they found the guy around the corner who can only deliver in capsules. Is this a hard thing to do? I mean, what do I need?
So there's obviously several ways, right? There's from, actually growing your own substrate to, inoculating, to having a process, to it could get very complicated. Or, and this is going to sound like a plug.
I'm a fan of who you're going to plug.
Get something like this.
All right, so let's talk about that. So
let's talk about Wonder Bag. Let's give our friends Wonder Bag a great plug because this is really easy, right? And they were smart. They were smart because here's the situation. Obviously, there's places where you can't sell or you can't send spores or cultures. It's illegal, right? So the people at Wonder Bag said, how about if people order something, we inoculate it for them, right? So the next day, it's just a colonized block of dirt. That's all it is. And it's for research purpose only.
Okay.
So Wonder Bags is telling you this isn't for consumption. This is for research purpose only. So it's incredibly easy. So Wonder Bag will send you this right here, right? The colonized block of dirt. You put it in this thing. What this does is there's no light coming in this way, which means the only light that's coming in is from the top.
Coming up, yep.
And that's where the mushrooms are going to go from. These, within 20 days, you'll have fruiting body, right? You cut it open, you get in there, you take out your fruiting body, and then you go ahead and, I'll take them and dehydrate them and take what I'm going to use for my microdosing. The rest I'll vacuum seal and put away. And then I'll have what my monthly microdosing supply is, or either I'll put them in capsules for my partner because she prefers capsules, or I'll measure them out myself. It's not difficult. It's not. And again, it goes back to the power of myself. A lot of people are like, oh, you know what? I'm scared. I'm going to have to go out and where am I going to go? And whatever. Who am I going to find? And no, you have the power of doing this yourself, and it's sort of, people are like, oh, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm advocating that anyone does anything illegal, because there is still parts where this is illegal. That being said, if I have the potential to have my healing in my own hands, legal or not legal, I'm going to do it. Right, because I honestly don't believe that some authorities are going to come knocking on my door saying, "Hey, I heard you're growing some mushrooms in there. Put your hands behind your back.
You're a big threat.
We
it's
have
time
a
for you
warrant."
to go to jail.
Yeah.
You're arrested for being happy. Yeah, and I guess that goes back to the original "Are you on drugs?" Because so many people that I have worked with or I've talked to that are very similar in age as us, I hear the very same common responses. My doctor just gave me a ton of drugs and some coping skills, and they don't work. I mean, I've talked to several people who have been on 7 different anti-anxiety drugs who need another drug to go to sleep. So if we have the ability to have a bag shipped to our home and be able to open up neural pathways, which again, for anybody, I talk about neuroplasticity and neural pathways a lot. I was ice skating with my kids, and the Zamboni came out. And the Zamboni was pouring all this water all over the ice. That's what neuroplasticity is. So mushrooms are like a Zamboni on your brain. Like they literally
I love that.
And I was taking pictures. I'm like, holy crap, this is exactly what it is.
I love that.
It's a
love
Zamboni.
That analogy.
So so you create these entirely new paths for your blades to cross. And you get to decide how you want to do that. It's not the same thought process, same patterns, everything else. And we plugged Wonder Bags. That's why I created Hydrate, because one of the things that I kept seeing with all of the work that people were doing with this neuroplasticity is that there was nothing for brain health. Like there was nothing that would give them the excess stuff that they would need for the Zamboni.
Yeah.
So it's been a really fun journey to be able to kind of see how all this played out. And it was just from my facilitation work. I was just seeing the pain because for anybody who's listening, when you do take a high dose, it's work. It's beautiful, soul gut-wrenching work. But man, the healing is so amazing. But I saw what my Hydrate can do with continuing that neuroplasticity. But I love that. So, but yeah, the neuroplasticity and the Zamboni were like, it was like, immediately I connected the two.
I love that analogy. I've never, but it's true. That's exactly what it is. We're in these ruts. We're in this default mode network. It's these same patterns, you know what I mean? And then here comes this substance that just helps you sort of relay this new thing. Now, like we said, integration. Are you going to skate the same old ruts that you were skating before? Or are you going to integrate and skate new ones and think new ways and use that neural pathway?
And that's where I feel like there's this big disconnect from what we're all doing and talking about, because we have these breakthroughs. And I think people will rely on the medicine, or they'll have a program where they've just paid a ton of money to go to a retreat and they get 2 visits with a facilitator. Which to me, those are questions that I think people need to ask. Like, what does my integration look like?
Yeah.
And what are the tools that I have at my disposal to be able to integrate? Because if you're not journaling in the morning, and you're not like getting out those thoughts of gratitude or being intentional about your day, you really are not reacting to everything that is around you again.
That's true. That's true. It's again, these plant medicines, these substances, they're incredibly powerful, but it's what we do afterwards that's the real benefit. That's the real benefit. It's this sense of how we change, right? How we become present, how we take what we've learned, whether again it's a big journey, right? And the brain really opens up and cracks open like a coconut, or whether it's those small little microdosing tap into the brains, what are we doing with it? What are we, again, like you said, it's not just a supplement. This isn't just, oh, I'm going to take this and then it's going to be rainbows and butterflies. No, there's work to be done, but it just opens it up. I think it's almost that sense of, it's the clarity. Like people ask me, so what is microdosing? Like what does it look like? And go, this is what it looks like. So you have your glasses, smudge them up, right? That's without microdosing. This
I love this analogy.
Nice and clean. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Now I see it. That's microdosing. There's a little bit more clarity. Things are crisper. The vision, the focus is a lot clearer. That's when you find that perfect microdosing protocol and dosage. That's exactly what it feels like. The clarity.
Cesar, thank you so much for your time today and for this conversation. Microdosing is not a one size fits all, as we've heard today. I'm going to put Cesar's information in my notes. If you have any questions about microdosing or anything that Cultivating Wisdom can do for you, I strongly encourage my listeners to reach out to Cesar for guidance. And while we did not mean to plug Wonder Bags, but it's definitely something that if you have any questions about those, again, reach out to Cesar Marin. He'll be more than happy to be able to share some more information about them as well.
Definitely. And of course, look, we have the apparel brand. The mission of the apparel brand is to start conversations, right? That someone can wear a shirt that says microdosing and someone comes up and says, hey, you microdose? I've heard about that. I've read about that. Can you cultivate me with some wisdom? Or someone says, you microdose? So do I. How's it going? What are you microdosing? Oh, I'm microdosing psilocybin. Oh, really? I'm microdosing LSD. Oh, and how's that going? It's awesome. And you have a reliable source. Yes, of course I do. So the apparel brand, it's important these conversations that we can openly have, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a Numa 20 discount for everyone listening. So they get a nice little discount on the apparel. That's there. And also look, if you're over 50, go to microdosingover50.com. There's really good, wonderful, honest, open, objective information about microdosing. There's a really wonderful course if you're microdosing already on how to sort of really tap into that brain and, use microdosing to best your creative enhancement and your brain function. So that's there. So definitely check out microdosingover50.com. And like Alan said, just reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm an open book. I love our community. I love the people who are in the community. I love the people who are curious about the community. I love that you're in the community. And again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for letting me be part of your circle, for being so open, honest, and vulnerable. And again, for being such a wonderful part of this collective that we have.
I very much appreciate that. And since you have given us so gracious discount on the apparel, I would like to do the same for your followers as well. So we'll do a 15. So let's do Cultivating 15. Does that sound like
awesome?
A great? So, but
awesome.
Again, I knew this conversation was going to be great. We've been trying to get this on the calendar for a while. I am a huge fan of microdosing. And as we had said at the very beginning, just seeing where I was 2 years ago to where I'm at today, the medicine, if you choose to do the work, is real. And you are the magic. I love that you had said that. You are the magic.
Yeah.
So again, Cesar, thank you so much. This is Alan Wiederhold. This is Numa, The Cost of Doing Nothing.